Hi everyone, I'm Laura Porterial. I'm going to start with Gender Reckonings, Chapter 15, Paradoxes of Gender Redux, Multiple Genders and the Persistence of the Binary by Judith Lorber. In this chapter, she gives examples of challenging the binary division in gender. She points out that there are several countries or continents that have influenced the courts. For example, in Australia, the High Court has allowed someone to register their gender officially as non-specific. In India, the Supreme Court had recognized transgender as a third gender. And in Germany, it allowed parents of intersexed babies to register as indeterminate. Okay, Lorber makes a point that getting rid of gender boundaries should reduce the power of men and the inequalities that women are faced with. It should take some power away from men and give some power to women. Doing gender further creates the gap between men and women. Having multiple genders has actually sparked more violence than transgendered people had before here in the United States. Lorber talks about the gender paradox that institutions continue to show in the unequal treatment of women, that it is meaningless to bring in gender multiplicity if you do not give women equal treatment to men. Accepting homosexuality and transgender women and men ended their revolution because they did not or have not made any changes to social structures. Transgender people include themselves in gender binary, and that even the countries with the most resources going towards equality and political power or social privileges still favor men over women. She gives two ways that multiple gendering could have a structural effect if it wanted to. She uses Connell's examples at the end of his book, her book. One example is not presenting yourself as a man or a woman. The other one is playing with gender, like the parents of baby X. They didn't determine a gender for that child. So she gives the examples from Gloria Ansaldo's 1987 Borderlands. Her theory of Borderlands is talking about the people that identify as bisexual, pansexual, queer, etc. If they're stuck between heterosexual and homosexual, so that's what Borderlands means. So being stuck there doesn't help their cause. They have to get out of that. So one area that gender binary has actually been able to challenge is the multi-use bathrooms. In the past, it was actually the feminists that wanted gender neutral bathrooms because they were tired of waiting on the long lines behind while they see the men's bathroom, empty, and we usually have to wait on long lines. But now with the transgender or both gender, women and transgender wanting to fight for bathrooms, neutral bathrooms, society has responded negatively. Some people and some comments have been made about concerns with people's safety, especially women, concerned about being raped. And there are challenges in the court over safety and how they would prefer to have bathrooms that are gender binary. She concludes that multiple genders are not revolutionary, like I mentioned before. She says on page 299, she gives two reasons why they are not revolutionary. They are personal identities, not legal or bureaucratic statuses. As such, they are not getting built into the structure of gender, which remains binary. Second, their individualistic rebelliousness does not encourage coalescence into a gender-resistant movement. So again, she points out that they're not really revolutionizing any social structure. Moving on to chapter 1, Boys versus Girls, from the other book, the Gender magazine. Deborah Rigney, she's a sociologist. This is actually pretty interesting because I'm always talking about how I try to be neutral with my actual kids. My daughter and my son, I try not to try to like shape them into specific roles, that go with their gender. And she's explaining how gender in a daycare that she was working, how she noticed that things as young as in preschool, people are determining what is male or female gender. She also explains that gender and sex differ in that gender is how you learn what how to act, how your gender acts, as opposed to sex being what organs you're born with. Rigney went into a daycare and observed the socialization of each gender. She mainly mentions how boys, what comments they were making. A little boy in the daycare wanted to put on a tutu, and his friend pointed out that skirts are for girls. She asked him, where did he hear or where did he learn that boys shouldn't be wearing skirts and that they're only for girls. He pointed out that his teacher only lets the girls play dress up with skirts. So, that right there shows him, he's feeling like, okay, only girls wear skirts because they are only wearing dresses. They don't wear pants. So he's observing how his teacher is showing the girls how to play dress up. She also talks to another little boy when she hears, she explained to that little boy that it's okay for boys to play with skirts, but obviously whatever they tell them at home and in school is what that child is going to appeal to. Then there was another child that a boy telling another boy that he shouldn't play with dolls because he didn't want to be a funny bunny. He used that expression because his dad caught him playing with dolls, and that's how he responded to that. The dad told him, you don't want to be a funny bunny, so boys don't play with dolls. So therefore, once again, she pointed out that boys can play with dolls, that it's okay, but he learned this from his father. The most influential people that a child can have are the parents and the siblings and teachers. So learning, even if a teacher or a parent doesn't actually tell them something along the lines of, you're a funny bunny, or boys don't play with dolls, or boys don't put on skirts, they can still sense how they should be behaving from how the parents or the teachers interact. They're constantly observing adults to see how they should be behaving. But besides the parents and the teachers and siblings, you also have the media as a big influence on children. In the second to last paragraph, she says, Barbie shows and teaches girls what they should look like and what they can grow up to be, just as action figures do with boys. The problem is, action figures like those on the Power Rangers are often more imaginative and show boys that they can grow up to be big and strong. They can fight for what they believe in or just to fight. So it doesn't, we women, girls, don't have the same type of role models, because the Barbie, basically just looks great and we don't all look great. Then the next article is Chapter 7, Celebrity Drug Scandals, Media Double Standards, by Rebecca Tiger. She points out that there are differences between drugs. There are good drugs and there are bad drugs, according to how the media portrays people. This article actually upset me a little bit because it talks about how scandalous the death of Whitney Houston was. And the media had a big part of making it scandalous because they made her look, without even looking at her personal life deeper, they automatically, without even getting the autopsy back, automatically assumed that she had drugs in her system. So they didn't even give her a chance. They portrayed her as a junkie. Meanwhile, on the other hand, you have Lance Armstrong, which the media, didn't portray him as negatively as they did for Whitney Houston, even though he also used drugs, but it was because it was to enhance his performance and because he won titles in the Tour of France, he was seen differently. So it talks about how they scandalize things, and they also treat it differently depending on whether you are a minority or a white person. So she's pointing out that really Whitney Houston only had alcohol and traces of legal drugs and some marijuana. But again, that didn't make a difference to the media. They still portrayed her the way that they did, and they didn't take any consideration as to the fact that she was a mother and that she sang beautifully, and didn't even bring up how great she was. They only brought up the sorriness of the addiction, what it is to, have a problem and then go not get it resolved and die from the problem. And she also points out that she says that white people take medicine and are managed by doctors, while people of color take street drugs and are criminalized. And that's exactly what they did with Lance Armstrong. He's white, he got that to enhance his performance, while Whitney Houston, a woman of color, was portrayed as using street drugs. So yes, this article did upset me, and I was not very happy with this. But Whitney Houston was still a hero and an icon, even with the portrayal of the media. So there's a big contrast between how the media portrays the good and bad drugs, depending on who it is that is using them. Thank you.